Hello, good weekend to all. This is a review of the FTSE 100 for Monday's trading session, the 14th of February 2022. Wishing you all a very good weekend and a prosperous trading week. Okay, so let's get into the swing of things. Then FTSE 100, it's all about Ukraine, okay, and it's all about commodities. And obviously, we've got the fear that we've got this inflation or concern, which is obviously a supply side shock. And that's why commodities are moving higher. FTSE certainly has been immune to that because of the commodities rally, which obviously we've seen gold and oil obviously rally on Friday on the back of fear, and that obviously has caused risk off in US equities to a sharp degree, and also European equities as well. But I'm just going to focus on UK 100 going forward each time, and then obviously try and tackle the European equities separately. Okay, so let's begin in terms of the FTSE 100 for Monday's trading session. Okay, so let's bring up a chart of the FTSE 100 first and foremost. Okay, so here we go. Okay, so let's look at the larger picture here first of all. Bird's eye view monthly chart, as we all know, key resistance is around the 7800. We've got some areas of resistance here as well, where the FTSE certainly faltered around the 7730 or 7720 zone, which again, it certainly is all-time highs. There's no concerns here with regards to a hawkish central bank, as we all know. And as we know, the weekly resistance is 7800. So watch out for that level this week. Okay, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. The daily chart. Okay, so we've broken out past the key resistance at 7613. We've had this obviously bottoming tail here. Bulls certainly have come in quite strong. Pivot low seen around 7594, and that obviously is just closed strongly on the day, so very impressive to say the least, given the fact that Friday's price action was initially obviously bearish, and then obviously we closed higher, and the bulls certainly are pushing it towards the higher side. Now again, bear flag is in play. If you break above obviously Friday or Monday's trading session above that 7680, 7800, obviously the bulls are in charge. Until then, bears are certainly in control. We've got key support here at 7560, and we've got support at 7500. Now in terms of the price action on Friday, from what I can see, we closed around the 7600 zone, so we've closed around that key support at 7600. The next key support is seen at 7560, and then you've got key support seen at 7500 on the downside. So again, the whole focus really at present is you've got the hawkish central banks, which obviously globally accept the ECB. Obviously US equities falling on the back of obviously highest inflation, which in turn has raised fears of an intermeeting rate hike, and basically that's one of the things that exacerbates the situation, and obviously your Ukraine fears as well. That certainly seems to be overblown from my understanding so far. So again, this is the scenario in terms of the FTSE. So we're between those two, obviously fear and hope. Okay, so initially bearish, obviously rally on the back of strong commodities into gap fill at 7670, and then obviously after hours we've got smoked. So the pivot low on the FTSE after hours, let me just quickly recollect, I think it was around the 7580 zone, so certainly getting smoked after hours. But nevertheless, again, you've got key support at 7600. If we continue to get smoked, then you are looking at 7570 as gap fill support below, and then you got key resistance or key support around 7550, and then ultimately around 7500. But like I said, FTSE has been immune to the hawkish central banks. Obviously, as we all know, a stronger dollar hurts commodities, but yet the FTSE certainly has been rising, which has been following the Brent price. So bring up chart of Brent, as you can see, daily chart, weekly chart, certainly pushing higher. I mean, the daily chart should certainly explain it all. As you can see here, bull flag scenario pushing higher, which in turn obviously causes the FTSE to push higher. But one thing that's certainly worth noting is the monthly chart. Okay, let's just quickly draw this diagonal trend line. Let's just take a pivot point here. So again, we're into key resistance now on the monthly chart in terms of the FTSE 100. So watch out here. We're into that fib 75%. Previous resistance or previous support equals resistance around this zone here. So you've got the keys are low around 95, and then you've got 97, $98 as well. So just above that psychological $100 level. So let's see how this plays out. I mean, we've had the oil prices have risen almost tenfold since that obviously COVID low, as we all knew of, or experienced obviously when the news from China came out with regards to COVID-19. And ever since, obviously, the market certainly has very, very impressively rallied, and oil prices given the fact that peak oil, etc., that's certainly all back in the history books now. But nevertheless, that's where we're at in terms of oil. Okay, and let's see how this market plays out. But my understanding so far, again, Ukraine situation certainly overblown. Oil prices certainly inflating the back of that. You've got a situation in regards to Vienna as well. If the Iranians release a few million barrels a day, given the fact that obviously every government in the world is experiencing this supply side shock, which again is an inflation concern. I won't be surprised if the Ukraine situation is certainly de-escalated very quickly, and obviously the situation with regards to Iran is de-escalated as well, which means more oil on the market, and then you are going to see a powerful reversal in oil, which in turn obviously will cause the FTSE 100 to melt as well. So just keep an eye on oil. That's literally it for the FTSE 100. Okay, in terms of the monthly chart there, let's quickly give you an insight in terms of FTSE 250 then. So again, FTSE 250 still languishing. As you can see, it's all about oil. The rally in the FTSE 100, again, predominantly oil and commodities. Okay, whereas the FTSE 250 is languishing and is a reflection of true UK, obviously, manufacturing and goods and services. So FTSE 350 again being helped by oil to a large extent, but nevertheless, it hasn't put in a higher high. It's actually holding that key resistance level on the daily chart and the weekly chart as well. Key resistance. So until this is broken out on the weekly and until the FTSE 250 really starts to make a push higher, the FTSE 100 really is severely distorted by commodities. So again, watch out there. And again, if the commodities start to fall, then you are going to see a powerful sell-off in the FTSE 100 thus far. Whereas the S&P obviously is highly correlated towards tech stocks, and obviously, well, as soon as yields start spiking, then obviously concerns start to raise regarding the tech stocks, and also obviously the earnings haven't been exactly fantastic given Facebook, etc. So that's the scenario there. Okay, I'm not going to talk about on the indices. I need to make sure I keep it obviously focused on the US. I'll show you UK equities, predominantly US. UK. So in terms of the dollar at the moment, again, no significant push higher in the dollar index. So let's keep watching this in terms of the situation, in terms of the hawkish and dovish stance. I know we did have higher inflation numbers, so again in the US on Friday, so that's something to certainly take into account. Another very interesting chart from my perspective is this commodity index. Now, we certainly seem to have topped out, and there's certainly no new high on the obviously Wisdom Tree commodity index. So this is an important index to follow, and it certainly is indicating a potential top as well, which in turn obviously puts a top in commodities. Now again, don't get me wrong, this could certainly break out if war does break out with regards to Ukraine, but my understanding so far certainly isn't going to be the case. But again, nobody knows the future, and again, we just have to react. But the way things are going at present and the concerns, etc., unless there's some real major concern in terms of who controls the oil and gas, and obviously we've got Nord Stream as well. So there's a lot of politics being played in the background, whether the Americans are certainly pressing the Germans with regards to Nord Stream 2, we don't know. Okay, so we can only, as traders, we can only obviously react to what's on the one, react, and two, try to read between the lines. Okay, and certainly sniff out the BS, so to speak. Okay, so obviously we've got inflation concerns, we've got this so-called war that's being that's certainly being really, it's more of the US side really. It's in terms of propaganda, etc. So whether that's a smoke screen for obviously internal failure at home, but nevertheless it's not exactly a good smoke screen given the fact that obviously consumers are feeling the pinch in terms of inflation concerns. The last thing you want is oil prices going higher. Central banks certainly are stuck in a corner between a rock and a hard place. So and the last thing they want to be doing now is raising rates given the post-COVID world. Okay, so you certainly want to have favourable interest rates, but again, speculation is rife, and obviously everything including crypto and NFT is certainly going through the roof due to cheap money. So interesting next few years nevertheless, but if central banks are closing the QE taps, then certainly doesn't bode well going forward. Nevertheless, this is where we're at, and in terms of the central banks being hawkish, one would certainly err on the bearish side. Okay, now the FTSE 100, like I've just explained, is certainly being helped by oil prices. Now, if oil prices are coming to a top and commodities are coming to a top, then it certainly doesn't look good for FTSE 100 going forward. But nevertheless, we can't control the situation in Ukraine. We'll just react day by day. If we're wrong, stop losses in, and then we'll reassess, and then obviously see exactly where the market obviously trades. So for Monday's trading session, watch out for the key levels: 7670 gap fill, 7680, and then obviously 7690. On the downside, watch out for 7600 support. If that cracks, then you're looking at gap fill at 767570. In terms of the 60-minute chart, I think we're already obviously in between those zones. We've got this key diagonal trend line. Once that breaks, 7550 is key, and then obviously 7500. And again, a key level at 7615 and obviously 7670 on the upside. So that's basically where we're at. Let's see how the FTSE unfolds. Wish you the best trading week ahead. Goodbye now.